Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here. We have a great group. I really appreciate it. I know that it was hard to get here, hard to get out of your cars, but thank you. Today my name is Anna Marie Tutera, and I'm the Executive Director of the Kansas City Museum. We have remarks this morning, and then you are completely free to wander around the building, all 4 floors, lower, first, second, and third. We are here today to celebrate the completion of architectural construction for Corinthian Hall, architectural design by International Architects Atelier. Elizabeth and Majid and Andy are here, and construction by JE Dunn Construction Company. In addition, as we approach the next few months, we will be finishing up exhibit development and working on the development of education and public programs. The goal is still to reopen Corinthian Hall in late 2020. So without further delay, I would like to introduce Mayor Sly James, and I would like to say thank you very much. You have been incredibly supportive of our entire team and the project and me, and we could not have done this without you, truly. I moved back to Kansas City because you were in office, because I knew great things were happening in arts and culture in this city. And I'm really glad that we did, and I'm really proud of what we've accomplished here in the Museum of History and Cultural Heritage that we're creating. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Let's put a couple of things to bed. This would have happened whether I was here or not because of Anna Marie. A tremendous talent, a driven woman, dedicated to a purpose and a goal, and she works towards those goals and purposes every day. And I think that when you have a chance to go through this building today, it is a building at the moment. The heart and the life will be brought and breathed into it as the exhibits come in and it becomes open to the public, and it starts to capture that spirit of Kansas City that kind of permeates the walls. Then it will become the museum that she envisions. So before I say anything about my thoughts about this, what I really want you to do is to recognize Anna Marie and for the work that she's done, because she has been on this like white on rice. I want to say also welcome to Mayor-elect Lucas. He will take office on August 1. I'm trying to think exactly when that is, so let me check here. In 21 days, 14 hours, and 7 minutes. It's not like I'm ready to go or anything. Well, I want to thank all of you for being here today. This is one of Kansas City's most significant cultural assets and treasures in this city. It's also good to be able to celebrate our city's history and commitment to preserving this building so that other generations, future generations, will truly understand the history and the culture of Kansas City. It is unique, and it is something that should be treasured. This has been a huge undertaking. It's one of those things that we on local government know would not have happened but for a strong public-private partnership. And Troy will tell you more about what the city has contributed directly, but I do want to take a moment to say thanks to everybody who has contributed and all the private funders who contributed funding for the design and development of the exhibits for Stage 1 of Corinthian Hall and the architectural design for Stage 1 or for Stage 2. There are so many people that I won't be able to say them, and it would be a long list, and I would inevitably leave someone out. So there is a list in the handouts that you'll have, so I hope that you'll refer to them for the complete list. And when you see those folks, thank them for the effort that they put in here. I want to thank the historic Northeast community for its long-standing commitment to this museum and to this treasure, and to the project itself. Once this project is completed, Kansas City's museum will really be one of the leading history museums in this country. It'll have collections, it'll have exhibits, it'll have programming. I saw one of our educators over there today. She said that I get free tickets every time. She hadn't actually agreed to that, but I'm sure she'll think about it. But it's going to reflect our city's past and our present, but actually what it's going to do, it's going to reflect the spirit of this city, so that people moving to the city, returning to the city, growing up in the city, visiting the city will have an opportunity to learn more about this city that we all love. This museum is one of our most significant historical, cultural assets, and it's been part of this community since 1940. We have a book, Our Home, Kansas City, that I read to kids. I've read to about 135 schools since I've been in office. And we read that book. It's a book that was commissioned for Turn the Page KC. And one of the things about Our Home, Kansas City is it shows our home, Kansas City, in pictures and words to the children that we read to. And there's a page there. And every time we get to that page, they think it's the White House. And I say, just because it's got pillars doesn't mean it's the White House. And there are really smart people that live in this museum, so. So nearly 80 years after it opened to the public, the museum boasts holdings of more than 100,000 historic artifacts and archival materials that document, interpret, and preserve Kansas City's local and regional history. The restored and renovated Kansas City Museum will provide the opportunity to present and showcase those materials and their large collections through innovative exhibits and the use of technology and fantastic lighting and educational programming, which is something good, because one of the things that this museum can be and should be used for is to make sure that we are educating our children in ways that they are not able to be educated without this museum being functioning and opening. We need to get back to things that are civic in nature and build that sense in every child as they grow up and live in this city, that this is their city and they have a stake in it. And then maybe we'll have more than 18 or 20% of the population showing up to vote and things of that nature. But it starts with our kids. And so if this can be a place where our kids can learn and grow and see programming and learn about the history of this city in a beautiful, beautiful building and setting, then it will have served its purpose in spades. So I look forward to the continued progress of the museum. I look forward to opening day of the museum. I look forward to having the opportunity to work with Anna Marie Tutera again and all of her staff. But I do want to once again tell you that none of these things happen without the dedicated hard work of people who spend a lot of time, effort, and energy to make it so. And so Anna Marie and your staff, folks who are here, thank you for everything that you've done to make this building the success that it is and will be. And thank you for your innovative and thought-provoking programming ideas so that the people of this city will have something that they can treasure once again and forever. Thank you all very much.
Mayor-elect Lucas, we're extremely excited to work with you and really excited to show you what we're doing here, especially on the programming side, especially as we work. We have this really great model that we're working with our educators on. It's around restorative practices. Restoring relationships is kind of the basis for building inclusiveness and equity for our education programs, and that we're really excited to work with you on.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me just start with this today, and it's an honor to be with you on this beautiful day in Kansas City. And stay tuned, because certainly in 5 hours it'll be 90 degrees and sunny, and at least one fortune I've had in life, you have a few blessings from being bald. One of those is I've never had a bad hair day, so I appreciate that, to say the least. I want to start with this, in recognizing Mayor James. Now, he noted that he didn't do much in connection with this, but for all of us, and I know the city manager remembers this, and if there are any other elected officials here, when we were thinking about the projects that we were going to work on with the GO bond, when we were thinking about priorities, it was really Mayor James who kept us moving in a direct and straight path. Everyone on council had a different idea, and we had a wild range of ideas. Sometimes people from the same part of the city had different ideas on how this money should be spent. And I think he was able to say what are good projects that we can agree on, where frankly we have outstanding institutions, outstanding communities, and so many private benefactors that are supporting it. So I disagree with what that won't surprise him actually, but nevertheless, I disagree with one assertion here, which is that he didn't really have anything to do with it. I think he was core and central to that, and I think he deserves another round of applause in connection. And so another group that I wanted to make sure I'm recognizing today are those of you who have worked so hard for this organization for a number of years. When I was walking around before today's festivities, I had the chance to talk about my own visits to the Kansas City Museum when I was a school child, the things I enjoyed. People often mention the soda fountain machine. There are a number of other outstanding exhibits to the history of this region, to this state, and to this city. And I remember coming here to this outstanding building, this edifice, and knowing something more about Kansas City than that which I had grown up with or known in my own neighborhoods or in my own community. And I am so proud that for decades to come, another century to come, we'll have the opportunity to share that with the children, with the adults, with so many people in Kansas City. One of the things that's most exciting is our approach to not just having a great museum that cherishes our history, but also to restorative education, to making sure we're coming up with new models for how we integrate our community better, how we create better opportunities for us all to learn about the diverse, the sometimes troubled history of our region, and how we can create opportunities for every child in Kansas City, no matter their background, no matter when they arrive to Kansas City, to know about the great traditions, the great culture, the great civic nature and involvement of our city. Another thing that excites me about the future of this museum is that it is this great cultural core touchstone in Northeast Kansas City, but that exists for our entire region. Many of you might have been to the Kentucky Derby parties. Others, I met just a few minutes ago, had the fortune of getting married here. Others have had good fortunes to experience a number of great life events here. I look forward to when people think about exciting places and exciting activities and things to do in Kansas City, that this becomes the top of their list, that this is a key stop, that they spend some time and they spend some money in the Northeast, that they're actually making sure that they're investing long-term in our community. So I want to say thank you to so many of you who have done that work, but thank you also to Anna Maria and staff who are going to continue to do that work. Any time that I called and said, I have questions about what you're up to, you were always so willing to answer them. Any time that we've said, hey, how can this fit in with some other plan we have at City Hall, you were so kind to help us with it. And so I thank you for that. There's one other group of folks in the room today that I'd like to help, and then trust me, I'll sit down because we have a lot of folks, although this is helping me dry out finally, so I like the moment. And I noticed there are a few folks who have retired from city staff who are here back with us today. We have Mark McHenry, our former director of the Parks and Recreation Department, who did outstanding work in connection with not just this museum, but so many important cultural treasures in our city and keeping this city the exciting place that it is. So thank you, Mark, for being here. And then we also, and I also see, and I'm sure there may be others, but we also have Eric Bosch, who is our city architect, championed, quarterbacked so many of these important projects, and is somebody who in many ways is like a man for all seasons. He could work with police officers, artists, city council members, right, which is the hardest group of all, and could go through so much in making sure that we had all of these institutions that really treasured and valued the important impact of Kansas City. So thank you, Eric, for your service and being here today. And then finally, I'll end with this, which is getting these projects done takes a Herculean effort. And it's not lost on me, and he'll talk about it in a second. The city manager and his staff, who made sure that we could actually make sure this is getting done well. As we had hiccups along the way and all types of projects, he was ensuring that we kept moving. And so I thank him. I thank him for keeping us all updated. And I thank so many of you who have served in boards relating to both this institution and so many others that make sure Kansas City runs well every day. Because what I've recognized over the next 21 days, 14 hours, and 7 minutes is that the thing that actually makes this city work is the continuity and the commitment of so many of you. We all have the fortune of being in these positions for 4 years or 8 years. You all have been connected with these institutions for decades and lifetimes. That's not lost on us, and we thank you so much. And treasures like this wouldn't exist without you. Thank you all so very much.
Mr. City Manager, first of all, I want to say thank you to you. Thank you in particular for always being patient with us little people on our team. All of our phone calls and questions and requests for meetings, you always say yes, and you always help us figure out a path forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna Marie. I'll juxtaposition myself. The mayor-elect was quick to note that because of his bald head, the rain bounced off of him, and I absorb it all. So, again, I want to thank everybody who was involved in this process. This is a beautiful facility. For those of you, and I recognize some faces, we've been having this conversation about what to do with the Kansas City Museum, I think roaring on about 20 years. My job was to thank some of the folks that have been involved in this process, but we really need to go back almost 20 years back when this part of the city was represented by the first district, and Councilmember Deb Herman and Councilmember Bill Skaggs put about $10 million of in-district funds to fix the roof and put in the HVAC, which kind of sealed the building, put new windows in this building, and allowed it to just sit until we could figure out a long-term path. So I think as we go through the expectations, realize this has been a long-term sustained commitment by members of the City Council to allocate resources to a cherished institution. And I'm glad to have played a small role in it. I also want to make sure that we reiterate my thanks and the thanks of everyone to Terry Reinert, who's not here. Krista Morrison is representing Terry, but also former Director McHenry and the Board of Parks and Recreation Commissioners. We asked them about 5 years ago to take over responsibility, daily operations of this facility. And they've done a tremendous job of shepherding it through, allocating the resources. I was in, as Anna Marie mentioned, I was in many meetings where Kansas City Museum was brought up constantly saying, just a little bit of money and we can make this thing happen. Well, how much is a little bit of money? I just need $8 million. Well, and I need $8 million from the museum levy too. So you really need $16 million. Yes, but we won't ask you for any more. Anyway, this is a beautiful project, and it is I also want to make sure that we have. So I want to thank the Board of Parks and Recreation Commissioner for shepherding, continuing to make this a priority, along with the Northeast community who never let this project fall out of the radar of the folks at 12th and Oak, and recognize that this was a key linchpin for the further revitalization of the Northeast. So I'll last a shout out to the Kansas City Museum Foundation, which has taken a leading role in the private fundraising and is leveraging the civic and philanthropic community in this community to leverage the interior renovations. The city has done its part by sealing up the exterior and renovating the facility to a point where we can now hopefully leverage the private sector. They were also very effective in getting the state of Missouri to kick in $1 million from Missouri Development Finance Board tax credits to leverage the allocation for the exhibits, and that is the next phase of this project. So the Kansas City Museum Foundation has done a tremendous job of leveraging the civic community to truly make this a beautiful public-private philanthropic project that, again, will leverage this investment for decades to come and be a real anchor and stronghold as we see a revitalized Northeast in the future. So I was asked to talk about the numbers, and they talk about the project started in 2015, but it really started in 2002, 2001. This has been going on a long time. This particular section is a $22 million project, $8 million from KC General Obligation Bonds. And as Mayor-elect Lucas said, Mayor James was adamant that we try to find in those initial projects something that every part of the city could see some immediate benefit for. And this was identified as an immediate project of benefit to the Northeast. And so over the first 2 years of the general obligation bonds, we met those $8 million. I mentioned the $8 million from the Kansas City museum levy. That's a tax that everybody in this city has paid for decades, and it goes to support this operation. And we are able to leverage that resource to continue the investment. And then $6 million is being raised by the Kansas City Museum Foundation for the design, development, fabrication, and installation of exhibitions. And then they will be tasked with also taking on the subsequent phases, because as you were running for your lives to get into this building, you notice there's some buildings to the north that need some TLC as we move forward. So this won't be the last of our asks to the civic and business and philanthropic community to continue the investment in Northeast. So speaking of the exhibits, they are going to bring this place to life in a very modern way. They will include interactive digital technologies, as well as hosting many school and public programs. Our museum staff is working with Gallagher Associates, a museum design firm, and a team of historians, curators, artists, and educators to create these exhibits and programs. Next up, Anna Marie and her team are going to start on stage 2, which begins with the design work for the next 2 buildings on the property, the carriage house and the caregiver's house. So get your checkbooks out. We're going to need some help to make that work. So let's keep the good work going. Mayor-elect, I should part of the conversation when we put this facility in the project was, and this is being built with that design, was really creating a space where you, as the civic leader of the city, could showcase to visitors, international, national visitors to Kansas City, a unique place in Kansas City. So we really saw this as a greeting house for visitors to Kansas City. So it is as much as city space, and it's designed so we can remove exhibits and have formal events in a grand style befitting the great nature and great history and tradition of Kansas City. So this, I think, will be a wonderful addition to not only the Northeast, but to the city as a whole, as a way to showcase to the world the quality and majesty that is Kansas City architecture, the quality and majesty of Kansas City neighborhoods. So it's a great day in Kansas City. I was just saying I hadn't had to clean anything up in 3 weeks, so now we're going to go back and clean up all the tree damage from 20 minutes of storms. But again, this is a great day for Northeast and a great day for the city of Kansas City. Thank you very much for all of your passion and your willingness to invest your time and your treasure and your talent over decades to make this a reality. Congratulations.
I'd like to next introduce Commissioner Alan Dillingham, who serves on the Parks Board and also serves on the Kansas City Museum Foundation. I've had the pleasure of working with you over the past 5 years, which has been wonderful. Thank you in particular, too, for your guidance in the content development, the content for the history and humanities-based exhibitions. I know that you're excited about the exhibitions, and we really appreciate having all of that feedback.
Thank you very much. Well, good morning. It's great to be here with you all. I just love coming to this house. My grandmother used to bring me here when I was little. She was I think they were called musettes, and we would have at least an annual trip to come here and see the museum. And so it's always fun to come back. And Anna Marie, Paul, and the team here have just done some amazing things. I hope if you haven't had a chance, please walk around the house and look at it. It's just fantastic, and big things are to come here. So it's great to see everybody here and supporting this great endeavor. Back in 2017, we gathered in this spot to really kick off this whole thing. And so today we get to announce that we have finished the reconstruction of the inside here, and we're getting ready for the next stages. And I just want to impress upon everybody that we're really picking up steam. This is just the beginning. We have the exhibitions coming that we're working on, and the partnerships, our board development, everything is moving along great, and very excited for the future here. City museums such as this are so important to a community. They contribute significantly in preserving our past, reminding people of the individuals that have gone before us and on whose shoulders that all of us stand, of the values we hold dear, and acting as a catalyst to inspire, energize, and create optimism for our future. All of your support through the partnerships, the donations, and the many words of encouragement have made this day possible. A big thank you to Mayor James and City Manager Schulte for all that you have done. Also to the entire City Council, and especially Mayor Pro Tem Scott Wagner, who I don't think is here today, and Councilwoman Shields. But they've been a big part of this from the very beginning, and appreciate all of their support. At this time, I'd like to just thank Mayor James for a terrific 8 years. We have really some great momentum in this city moving forward. Just a really exciting time. We have this Kansas City spirit back that we can do things, and the sky's the limit. I think that a lot of cities in this country has really taken a note to that, and really to appreciate all that you have done. So thank you very much. So, and I also want to thank Mayor-elect Lucas for being here. We really appreciate you being here today, and very excited to work with you on this project moving forward. And as Troy was talking about, part of this is this house used to be the social place, the hub in Kansas City. And so we're excited for this to be the mayor's house again, so we can have receptions when dignitaries come in, whatever special events, that we can host them here and really have a nice house to showcase all of that. So we're excited about all that. I'd like to thank my fellow park commissioners, our Parks Director, Terry Reinertz, and then also our former Parks Commissioner, or Parks Director. And as Anna Marie said, I'm also on the foundation board, so special thanks to that board, and also Mary Davidson, who you're going to hear from here pretty quick. She's our chair. Through Mary's leadership, the foundation is building its own capacity as a nonprofit organization while supporting the restoration and renovation to ensure the Kansas City Museum is sustainable going in the future. Very important, and we appreciate all that you're doing. I also want to reiterate, we've said some of this, but appreciation for our honorary chairs and members that are here today. Mr. Bill Dunn Sr., Mr. Ed Matheny Jr., Mr. Henry Block in memoriam, Mrs. Anita Gorman, Mr. DiCapo, and Mr. Ollie Gates, who are not here today. But thank you so much for all that you have done in Kansas City. You're an inspiration to all of us. We really appreciate it. Two more quick things. Troy already mentioned that we just did receive an announcement that the Missouri Development Finance Board will be offering us $1 million for tax credits. We're very, very excited about that. That's for the exhibition and stage coming up here. So I want to thank the Missouri Development Finance Board for that, and then special thanks to our Kansas City Commission members, Kelly Martin and then Matt Dameron. With the museum currently parked under the umbrella of the Parks and Recreation system, it sits in a perfect position to grow within the rich environment of the department's many existing arts and cultural activities and partnerships. This house has played an important role in the city's growth and evolution. Now as a museum since 1940, it will once again provide an historically significant role to guide us into the future through a lens of the past. Thank you.
Parks Director Terry Reinert could not be with us this morning, but I want Krista come up. Krista Morrison is our Deputy Director at Parks, but I just want to say that Terry hired me 5 years ago, and it has been an absolute pleasure to work with Terry, and I'm so excited that she is the first woman director of the Parks Department, and I'm so proud of her and excited to work with her as we complete this project.
Well, I know Terry's very sad that she couldn't make it today. She had a conflict. I'd like to first off thank Mayor James, City Manager Troy Schulte, Mayor-elect Quentin Lucas, members of City Council, our Parks Board, and our Board of Directors of the Kansas City Museum Foundation. A big thank you to Anna Marie Tutera, our museum staff, International Architects, JE Dunn, and the expanded museum team of historians, curators, educators, and artists. Thank you for our honorary chairs and members of the project, Mr. Bill Dunn, Senior, Mr. Edward Matheny, Mr. Henry Block, in memoriam, Mrs. Anita Gorman, Mr. Carl DeCapo, and Mr. Ollie Gates. Without your support and partnership, this project could not have been a success. The Parks Department took over the management and operation of the Kansas City Museum in 2014 to ensure its successful renovation. Parks couldn't have been successful with this project without the years of dedication, hard work, planning, and support of those who came before us. Those who work to prioritize and advocate for the museum, including the neighborhoods, neighbors, and stakeholders of the historic Northeast. I would like to recognize the efforts of Museum Director Anna Marie Tutera. Anna Marie has served as a constant champion for the Kansas City Museum and arts in Kansas City. This project is a true example of private and public partnerships and benefits to the Kansas City community. The Kansas City Museum is working towards creating a multicultural, intergenerational, and inclusive museum and learning environment as it aligns with Parks' mission of social and cultural equity. The Parks Department is committed to the mission and vision of the Kansas City Museum, and Parks will continue to support the museum in realizing its goals of connecting people, inspiring conversation, and mobilizing resources towards civic unity. Thank you.
Well, last but never least, there is something truly special about Mary. She is the chair of our foundation board, also a great supporter of the museum and mentor for me and the entire staff.
Before I start, I need him to stand up because I need to show you. What I'm about to tell you will understand better. You know, a city without the knowledge of its past history, the knowledge of its origin, the knowledge of its culture, is like a tree without roots. And the growth and nourishment of those strong roots are our responsibility, all of our responsibility. Each of us and all of us own our history as well as owning our future. And the future comes through this museum as well as the history of our city and our region. But you know, we're a team and we're all on the same page and we can't do anything alone. So I have to say that particular thanks. You know, Mayor James and I have known each other for about 30 years. We weren't quite so gray when we first met.
And I wasn't quite so big.
I didn't. I thought about saying that, but I decided not to. I did think about it though. And but you know, it's been a good ride. Oh dear, it really has. And I have to say thank you to Troy Schulte too. And I showed you the difference because at one time I had to tell him if I didn't get some money. I was the interim CEO at the World War I Museum, and every damn thing in the place was leaking. And I would pay a visit to him regularly. And you know, you always get the same song and dance. Well, we don't know. So I said, you know what? If I don't get the money, I'm going to have to kill you. And he looked at me and he said, why am I not afraid? But you know what? I didn't kill him. I did get the money. We did get the museum fixed, and we're still friends. So he has always been very supportive. The first time I ever met him, I asked him for $100. I'd never seen him in my whole life before. I mean, $1 million. See, he doesn't forget. He always reminds me of that. I'd never seen him in my whole life before, and he looked at me like I was a mad woman. And I think he thought that too. But the city council has also been very supportive. The parks director, Mark McHenry, we couldn't have made it this far without you, Mark. We just could not have. And and Mark and I have been friends a long time too, from the World War I days, and we have been friends and colleagues, and thank you. And Terry Renard and the Parks Board. The Parks Board has been very supportive, and as you know, there are 2 Parks Board members on our foundation board, and Alan is one of them, and Shannon Cade is the other, and both of them have been extremely supportive, carrying the message back and forth from the foundation to the Parks Board. So, and I think that I would be very remiss if I didn't spend a little more time talking about the Museum Foundation Board. They deserve a really special recognition. They've helped raise funds. They've been always engaged. Everybody on the foundation board has been engaged with the museum. And they have always been ever so thoughtful in planning the strategy to put forth the policy that has carried the museum to today. So I want to tell all of the foundation members that I am honored to serve with you. And some are here. There's Sunny. Yes, and there's Trina. And Rosie. There's Rosie. I saw Rosie. And of course, Alan is always engaged. And I, you know, Anna Marie Tutera and Angela Tangen, I couldn't have gotten along without them. We've been friends a long time too, but I couldn't do without the ladies. Is Angela here? Where's she? Oh, there she is, hiding. But Angela is probably the best development director that ever was. So she's back there. She's my friend too. So I like young friends. I mean, what am I going to say? So the honorary chairs of making the museum Kansas City, along with all the funders who believe in this wonderful enhancement to our city, deserve a special thank you. Thank you, lady. Thank you, gentlemen. But you know, the bottom line here is that we all work together to create this 21st century museum telling the whole story of Kansas City and the region's history and the region's cultural heritage, as well as Kansas City's, because we're all in this together. And it's a wonderful cooperative venture that we have been at for, what did you say, Tori, 20 years? God, that's a long time. Anyway, the fall of 2020 is the big date. And so we want you to come and visit often. And the Kansas City Museum will be the star in the crown of this city that we all call home. And we want you to look, to absorb, to learn. And once you step inside the Kansas City Museum, history is rewritten to include all of us, now and in the future. And by the way, I'd be very remiss to tell you that we could receive any donations that you would like to put forward. Troy, and all of you, we take cash or check. And they're gratefully accepted, and I am so pleased to see everybody here and proud to be a part of this wonderful adventure. Thank you.
Well, I'm hoping that you will stay a little bit longer and go through the building. Second and third floors are where we'll have the gallery spaces. So everything is kind of prepped, getting ready for those exhibits. You can go down into the lower level. You will see the soda fountain and the billiards room, and yes, You can come here and shoot pool, although I did promise Terry we would not gamble in order to make earned revenue. We'll see about that. I want to say thank you so very much to our museum staff, Denise, Paul, Kate, Janet, Chaluba, Harry. You all are incredible. I'm really honored to work with you. It's been a really fantastic 5 years working together. There have been a lot of laughter and heated conversations and tears and joy, fear and courage as we move through this process. I also want to thank our educators who are here today, and our historians and our curators and our artists and our partners who are coming with us on this journey as we create content and as we create the programs for the Kansas City Museum. In conclusion, Mark McHenry, come up. I want to say thank you to you. I've learned a lot from you over the past 5 years, and Eric, come up as well. Eric recently retired as the city architect and worked with me as the project manager for the past 5 years. And I'm just so grateful that you continue to take my calls and texts on a daily and hourly basis. You are incredible. You are incredible mentors for me. I've learned so much, and truly being able to navigate the city systems. You were extraordinary helping me to do that. This was my first time working for the public sector, so I had a lot to learn about city government and politics, and I couldn't have found two better people to show me the way.
Thank you very much, Anna Marie, and as folks have said, we couldn't have found a better person to lead this project forward. I also want to mention George Costello's name. I think most people know George at Union Station, and George and I had a conversation about 6 years ago about he was about ready to disengage from the Kansas City Museum. He's got his hands full running Union, and does a great job at Union Station. Great facility, does a great job down there. So we visited and then met with Troy and had a conversation. It was about time to move this facility over to the park board, and it seemed like the park board was a logical thing to do. Probably wasn't maybe the best idea to move the museum to the airport or the water department or somebody. So we'll move it to parks, and I think it's been a good call. We take a lot of pride in our cultural attractions and assets in this facility. As I listen to everybody's comments today, I think about this great attraction, this great cultural facility, but I also think about three other ones that are key to this city, and Eric's been a big part of that as well. I had the opportunity to work on the renovation of the Kansas City Zoo, another one of our great attractions, and Eric is the kind of guy I turned to a lot because he had that great architectural expertise. Starlight Theater went through some major renovation. Again, turned to Eric on that, and all our ADA improvements going on. And then, of course, the National War Museum, Liberty Memorial, another project now that is, a national treasure, not only in Kansas City, but throughout the world. And there again, Eric's been a big part of that. And then we're working on a little animal shelter out in Swope Park right now, another one of those GeoBond projects. And everybody's pretty familiar with that, and Eric's been a big part of that. Along with, it was mentioned earlier by Mayor-elect Lucas about police stations and fire stations, and Mayor James mentioned a lot of the projects that Eric's been involved in as well. So Eric's been great to the city and all the things that he's done. Beyond the Art Commission, I think he did a little facility down there for the tow lot years ago. So he's been a great addition to the city. The other thing I want to mention quickly, a common linkage in all of these cultural attractions, all of these that I talked about, the zoo, Starlight, and the Liberty Memorial, and the Kansas Museum, is JE Dunn Construction Company. They worked on all four of those. And I'll toss one more in there because they have an A team, and that's the block galleries over at the Nelson. That was also done by the JE Dunn team. So when it comes to that, you've got the talent here in town to do the attractions, do them first class all the way. I'm sorry Mr. Gates wasn't able to be here today. He's the one that led us for years. I'm glad Mrs. Gorman is able to be here today. I know Carl wasn't able to be, and he was involved in all these projects too. So their leadership has been a big part of this, and thank you, Mary James, for your leadership over the years. It's been a great run. The city is that much better off, and there again, congratulations, Mayor-elect Lucas, for your leadership in the future. And then one little side comment is Troy was standing up there with Mary Cohen a minute ago. I was in a meeting, they talked about it, and Troy, as you know, has this long table in his office, and he sits at the one end, which is, of course, the west end. This lady walks in, sits at the east end of the table, and, of course, Mary was the lady. She walked out of there with $1 million, and after the meeting, Troy pulled me to the side and said, "Who was that lady?"
Thank you for those comments, Mark, and thank you, Anna Marie. I worked on this building a lot, from comments made about replacing the windows, making the building tight, replacing the roof, and putting air conditioning in. And when the Parks Department took over the building, I didn't know that they would bring me back on, but it was probably about 2 weeks, and Anna Marie said, "We're going to New York, and you're going with us." So we looked at lots of museums and got ideas. And the other day I made a comment that I'm very passionate about this building and continually will be passionate about it. It will be, and it is, the jewel on the hill in the Northeast. And I know that many in the room probably know this, but I will continue to be involved in the museum. And I just know that my new venture, my new journey, and my new employer will let me be part of this project. Thank you so much.
Please enjoy this space. Restrooms are on the second floor. Wander around. I also want to say thank you to Leslie. Thank you to Louis. You two, Parks colleagues, are always there for us. I really appreciate you very much. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy.